All right. I really don't want to talk about this. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Superhero Speak. I am your host, Dave. And this week, I want to talk about something that I don't like to ever talk about, but I saw some stuff on social media, and I don't want to talk about this on the regular show, so I figured I'll bring it up here. Comicsgate. All right. I'm sure if you're a comic book fan, you have heard the term before. It's gained some steam. It started around 2017, gained some steam, I don't know, a couple years ago, and kind of jumped off the radar, but yet it still won't go away. And every time something adjacent to it comes up, they all lump it into this Comics Gate. So what am I talking about here? All right. So back in 2017, um, Ethan Van Sciver, who, for those who don't know, is a very prominent artist who worked for Marvel and DC for many years. He worked on Green Lantern. He's most known for his work on Green Lantern and The Flash. He was a big part of Flash Rebirth, and just an acclaimed artist. Everyone liked his work. Um, but apparently, he had some views that everyone didn't agree with, and he was kind of let go of DC and decided to pursue his own solo works. He has a book, I believe it's called Cyber Frog, and yeah, and then around that time also he created a YouTube channel called something Comic Pro Secrets, I believe, and he started posting videos on there. And full disclosure, we actually had him on the podcast at this time, 2017, because um, there had been one or two posts on social media, but nothing major yet. And then, yeah, I watched his channel a little bit. Then all of a sudden, I describe it as he lost his mind. Like, and here's the thing: I've realized that controversy creates cash. We've all heard that expression before, and I believe he's not an idiot in the sense of he started creating controversy around himself. From my understanding, he's actually the one who coined the term Comicsgate, and he's worked with a few different creators in this time frame since then. I believe the most famous was Richard C. Meyer, um, and he helped him, and he worked with IDW on books like GI Joe. I believe. Don't quote me on that. I don't know him that well. He though created a book called Jawbreaker, which was put up on one of the sites. It wasn't Kickstarter, I believe it was Indiegogo. Made a bunch of money, and then went through it did find a indie publisher, I believe, and like everyone made a big deal about this book, and it kind of came and went. And then anytime Ethan Van Sciver works with someone, they're automatically part of Comicsgate. I believe he also worked with a couple other people. Uh, Most recently, he was somehow involved with the Rippaverse stuff. He's worked with Chuck Dixon, who most famously created Bane in the DC universe. Chuck Dixon doesn't work for any of the big publishers anymore. They're okay. Let me back it up a little bit. These are all more conservative leaning creators whose base argument is diversity in lieu of a creative idea is hurting the comic book industry, where they just swap races and sexes and call that like, oh, look, it's a brilliant new character. I I'm of two minds of it. Like, if it's done temporarily, and let's face it, in popular comics. Whenever they do something, it is temp, so I don't get worried about it. It's you know these are properties, they always revert back to their original forms, and if they're just trying to tell a story from a new perspective, like, okay, that's fine. I think the only successful ideas of this is done maybe is Miles Morales, and um and I wouldn't even call Kamala Khan the same idea. Like, Miss Marvel hadn't been a character in a while. They introduced a new character and they called her Miss Marvel, but totally different power set. She is not a copy of Captain Marvel. So she's a Captain Marvel fangirl. That's why she calls herself Miss Marvel. It's, you know, and that's why she works, because she's a different character in her own right. Um, Miles just hit the right notes. It was a good story, and that's why he survived. But you know, you also have heard this term, and I've worked with people too have said this, and I don't disagree with this. It's the term hand me down powers. Instead of creating a new female character with new powers or a new minority character, you just give them the mantle of an existing hero. And yeah, um, that doesn't work, a lot of times. A great example of this, hey, I'm a huge Captain America fan. If you're a regular watcher of the show, you know this. And um, Bucky being Cap, not Bucky, I'm sorry, Falcon being Cap works and doesn't work. I have I'm of two minds on it, but the main thing is that he was already a hero in his own right. He was already Falcon. So he gives up being Falcon to be Captain America. Um I don't know. You know, and it's funny because again, it's comics. It reverted back to Steve Rogers, of course. Um, I've also said this this is an aside note, but I said this on the podcast many times. In the books, I got upset when they gave it to Bucky because Bucky they had just brought back from the dead. In the Winter Soldier story, like a few years before that, he hadn't been around, so it didn't make sense for them to get, and they had killed Steve in the comics. It didn't make the sense for them to give it to Bucky. It made more sense to give it to um, Falcon, or yeah, Falcon at that point, because he had been friends with Cap for decades in the comics. He was his partner in a lot of stories. So I was like, why didn't they give this to Falcon? And then in the movies, they did the opposite. Like, and I felt it made more sense in the movies to give it to Bucky because he basically disobeyed everyone for his friend in like multiple movies, multiple stories. So yeah, it made more sense to give it to Bucky in the movies, but they gave it to Sam. Anyway, that's an aside. Doesn't matter. Um, what I'm getting at is, so these guys came out, and what's the guy's name from the Rippaverse? I can't think of it off the top of my head, but like he came out with a book that did really well. Eric July, that's it. Eric July came out with a couple Kickstarters that did really well on a book. Um, it's tangentially, and he's a not a conservative. He's a libertarian commentator. He's a musician, podcaster, so he already had an audience built in, and he did well. But like, what happens is then the people that are on the Comicsgate side are like, "Oh, look, see, this is what people want," and it's like, he was already popular for other reasons, not mainly because he's writing something that isn't, for lack of a better term, woke. So that's the whole thing. These guys start complaining. There's no original ideas. They're just flipping genders. Everything is woke just to make money. And it becomes a thing. And it becomes a thing for a little bit in the comics industry. And then it kind of dies. But every once in a while, when like Eric July comes out with a book, and he happened to work with Chuck Dixon, who's worked with those guys, it's like, oh, it's another Comicsgate thing. Just ignore it. but it creates controversy around it and then makes the thing more popular. And then what had happened was this past weekend or the weekend before, I'm not sure, was C2E2 in Chicago, and the couple of the Comicsgate guys, Ethan Van Sciver and what's this guy's name, John Mellon, and a couple others were going to get a table together at C2E2 and promote some of their books. And they were trying to put it under a company name, and they were all going to share the table, whatnot. And C2E2 denied them the table and said and people are saying they were subletting, right? Because they were sharing the table, and that's illegal at comic book conventions. I want to emphasize that illegal. And then so basically, my understanding, I didn't follow it. I just heard about this after the fact. There was some back and forth, and finally, C2E2 just denied them the table, so they weren't going to go. But then this John, what's his name? See, I don't even know who this guy is. This John Mallon decided he was just going to buy a ticket on his own and go to the convention. And he shows up. They don't. They hesitate to let him in. Like, security stops him and like talks to him for a long time, and then finally they let him in. He had some kind of meetup with some fans, and then next thing you know, he was escorted out of the convention. And the reason given is they were claiming he was making some of the convention goers feel unsafe. All right, so let's talk about this. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is the subletting tables is illegal. I have gone to conventions for a long time now, 25 years basically, and I volunteered at conventions. I worked Artist Alley. I have worked at an Artist Alley with friends. I have basically worked almost every aspect of being on the floor at a convention. And I can tell you, in almost every convention I have gone to, people have shared tables. It's becoming more common in the last couple of years because tables have actually gotten really expensive, and so they're sharing tables. A lot of the guests who've been on this very podcast have shared tables with other creators because it's very expensive, and they have let them do it. And there are people who are going to come back in the comments and argue and say, oh, well, you have to go through certain channels and blah blah. It sounds like they tried to, because obviously they spotted what they were doing and said you can't do this. So instead, they didn't work with them. They just said you can't have it, and that's ridiculous. Here's the thing: if you don't want them there, then just deny them the table. But to give them an excuse of saying you can't share a table when everyone does it at conventions drives me nuts. It's the putting on a false story to keep someone out. And then, of course, when the guy shows up, you kick him out. And here's the thing: if people keep doing this crap, it just fuels them, and it just gives them more controversy. And they create these controversies so that they can sell more books, make more money, and keep doing this. And if you don't give them any fuel, let them have the table. And if no one goes at their table while they're there, then fine. And if someone says, oh, I don't like them, you just say to that person, then don't go to their table. Like, why do we live in a world where if I don't like something, it has to go away? It can't be part of my world. It'll go away if you ignore it. But when you do stuff like this, you're giving it fuel and you're making it bigger than it actually is. I want to share a story about where I get my view on freedom of speech. When I was young, I was raised Catholic, had a very Catholic family, very Catholic mother. So this is, I want to say, early 90s, early to mid 90s. I was still at home. It was before met my wife, before I was married. Um, and at home with my mom, and the news comes on, and it's this news about this exhibit that's been touring around. I don't remember the name of it, but I do remember what it was about. Was it was pictures of Mary and the Holy Family and Jesus and Joseph and all this stuff, and like it was covered in shit, and it was all stuff like that, where it was like mocking the sacredness of the Holy Family and of religion. And someone created this and called it art. To me, that's not art. That's just creating controversy for the sake of controversy, right? Just like these Comicsgate guys, um, and just to be popular. And I said to my mother, "That's terrible. We need to do something about this. We need to stop it." And she goes, "No." And I said, "What?" She said, "We live in the United States where we have freedom of speech and freedom of expression." Um, and she said to me in all sincerity that we have to respect that. We have to respect their freedom of speech so they respect our freedom of speech. And I can just not go, uh, I might not like what they're saying, but I have to respect their right to say it. And all I have to do is just not go look at that, and I'm fine. They're over there doing their thing. I'm over here. We both have freedom of speech. We're allowed to say what we want. And I was like, wow, and it blew me away, but it made me understand that that's the importance of freedom of speech, is that if you try to take away these comic gates guys freedom of speech because you don't like their message, because you think they're sexist or racist or whatever, and maybe they are, maybe they're not, I'm not judging anyone. Someone, that's what's to stop someone from taking away your freedom of speech later on? Nothing. The more you fuel stuff like this, the more it's going to come back on you later on. And that's the thing that we have to keep in mind. And the best thing to do to make stuff like this stop is ignore it, and it'll just go away. Honestly, I believe that if everyone just ignored these guys when they came out and didn't make a big deal about their books, they wouldn't make the kind of money they appear to be making, and they would just stop doing it because they're not making the money. I mean, there's been some talk that on the Indiegogo stuff you could game the system and game the system and make it look like the book is bigger than it is. Then there's people who believe that these guys did this with their books, um, and so maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't know, but I kind of think maybe they did because I haven't heard much about their books since then. I know Skyver is still doing Cyberfrog, but Jawbreaker I haven't heard anything about since that first book came out. Yeah, I know Eric July is on Kickstarter and he's doing well, but again, I think his popularity has nothing to do with the Comicsgate stuff. It may have boosted him a little, but he's a creator in his own right. And again, musician and podcaster first before this, so he already had an audience. So long story short, can we just stop talking about these guys? Seriously. Just just ignore them. They will go away. Stop acting like they can hurt you. They're just comic book creators. They can't do anything to you that you don't let them do to you. So just ignore it and it'll go away. And if we keep putting social media when stuff like this happens, don't kick them out of C2E2. Let them come. Like it's there's no reason. Just ignore them when they show up, and it'll be it. And then next year they won't be there at all. But now that this has happened, this is going to fuel them, and they're going to come out with something else in the next few months, and they're going to probably try something at New York Comic Con now or San Diego. We'll see. Well, that's all I got to say on this. I thought this was going to be a couple minutes. I ranted for a long time. So thanks for watching. And as always, until next time, don't let your cape go out the door.